Hi. So this is a study I did that's contributing towards my thesis. I'm a student still working on my PhD at University of British Columbia, and I focus on working with dairy farmers out in where most of our dairy production is out in the valley, and I have worked with veterinarians as well. So to begin with, this is a dairy calf. She is a baby. Once she's born, if she faces close to a 12% chance of dying. If she makes it past the first 48 hours, it drops a little to around 7%. And that's the stats aren't that much better in the States as well. So there's many reasons why calves die, but they really don't have to. We know quite a bit about one of the biggest reasons calves die, and this is proper colostrum management when they're born. We also know that calves need a lot of nutrition while they're growing, and this is the pre-weaned calf, so we're talking about milk. And these two issues, colostrum management and how much calves receive milk while they're still pre-weaned, are two of the biggest concerns we have with on-farm dairy calf welfare. In Canada, we know that they are failing to receive adequate colostrum, upwards of 30% on some farms in Canada. That's quite a significant chunk of calves that are not getting set up with a healthy immune system at an early start. And we know this leads to increased morbidity. They're more likely to get sick, and it just sets them up with a lifetime of problems. We also know that calves receive far less, in fact, half the amount of recommended milk they should be getting every day. But the big question is, why is this still happening? There's plenty of research, and these aren't things that are argued too much anymore. So there's this gap between what we know on the research side and research findings and what the reality is for calves on the dairy farm. And so what I was interested in doing was to understand how a tool such as benchmarking, where somebody receives data on your own performance and then you learn how you rank against your peers on that same performance, how this might help narrow this gap between research findings and on-farm practices. So I interviewed farmers participating in a 34-week study done in coordination with their herd veterinarians. They received reports that provided information on how their calves were doing and against other area farms. Now, these really are not the norms of practice in British Columbia. Systematic data collection does not typically happen for calves. And they certainly don't typically talk to their veterinarians about calves unless it is really bad. So we were kind of testing some norms out a little bit. And I was interested in how they would react to learning about how they measured up to their peers. I was interested in learning how they would react to receiving information on how healthy their calves were and how well they were growing. I was really curious about how farmers felt about discussing these problems with their herd veterinarian. So the following is just it's just three of the major findings from my study. One of the major themes was that I found it was a positive experience for farmers to gain access to data on their calves because it provided them with concrete evidence about how their calves were doing. Many farmers felt good about the behavioral assessments that they did normally, but they also had some ambivalence about, I don't know for sure. These are data-driven people for the most part, but not with calves. It also helped farmers identify where problems existed and how to address them. As this farmer explains, I didn't think it would be as bad as it was. So they received the report, and this was one of their reactions. But it did make sense after we started putting the calves with the numbers, and it made sense because they weren't getting enough colostrum. So it made sense. It's nice we figured it out. So this farmer really got some bad information, but it still was a positive thing because they were able to identify where a problem was and how they could go forward with fixing it. Additionally, knowing how their calves compared to their peers promoted calf management as a topic to consider more broadly in the farming community. It means to think beyond their own farm. It was also a reference point for how farmers could interpret their own performance. As this farmer explains the value in having other farms to compare against, I still think it's the difference between the farms, because your numbers aren't that valuable if you don't have anything to put it against. Also, peer comparison promoted trying new ways to manage change. They were curious what other farmers were doing on their farm with managing their calves and getting it better in performance. And finally, a major theme was the value of the veterinarians. The veterinarians we partnered with, they actually were there to give the reports to their clients. And we found that the farmers valued their herd veterinarians' role in interpreting these benchmark reports and providing insight into how other farms achieve these improved calf outcomes. For this farmer, having the vet involved in calf management was based on anytime you talk about things with the veterinarian, you sort of get motivated to do it even better, you become more conscious of it, and you pick up stuff. And I'm just going to conclude real quickly with a final quote from this farmer. Sums it up. I think the value of benchmarking, I think it's good because most farmers are prideful and they want to have the best looking animals. So it encourages better farming practices and everyone in the community strives from other farmers doing better. Thank you.